Now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with the Game Boy Geek.
Hello there, my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, it's all about numbers. Numbers and colors, and we're going to be trying to figure out which numbers are in front of us that we don't get to see, and they're going to be changing over the course of the game. We're looking at a deduction game that has a little bit of a betting element here called Think Str8. Some of you may look at this and say, oh, it's sort of like Hanabi, or maybe it's like Code 777. Sure, both, maybe. Let's take a look. I'll show you how it's different, and I'll see you on the other side. The game of Think Str8 has 6 different colors and 8 numbers of each, 0 through 7. We have this set up for a beginner game, which means you take the color gray out, and I highly recommend doing this until you're really good at the game. So we have just 5 colors. Now here, even though there's 4 tiles out, we have 2 players, and so no matter how many players that are playing, each person gets 1 card of each color that they cannot see in front of them, like this one, and everyone else does the same thing, so that when you are looking out, you can see 3 different sets of cards, 1 of each color, but you never get to see your own. Also, 1 card of each of the colors in play gets randomly taken out and thrown into the box that nobody gets to see, so you'll never have exactly perfect information in the game. The object of the game is to try to find out and know which number for each color you have on your rack at the end of the game, which is important because these can change throughout the game. Let's talk about how a turn works. Now we each know at the beginning of the game there's certain numbers that we can see on the other players' palettes. And so you can, they have you basically completely color them in because these are the ones that you've seen and you know for a fact cannot and will never ever be on your tray at any point in time in the game. So we've crossed out all the ones that we had seen from the beginning of the game. Then we're going to take these dice and the person in last place will roll it. And if at the beginning of the game, it's kind of just random there. And so here, now we're not playing with the gray color. So the gray color can get moved to any color you want because we're not playing with the gray in the beginner game. And any other die can get moved, if you don't like it, can get changed to any other 1 color. But let's stick with this. Let's stick with 2 blues and a green. By the way, this board here I want to show you is probably some of the only negative things I have to say about this game is it's just a very thin paper board here, and the cards themselves are also very thin. They're very small. They could easily get chipped. They could easily get bent in the corners there, which would completely ruin the game. So I highly recommend you sleeve these somehow because they are very flimsy. So we go to blue, blue, green. So what I do is I mark 2 X's, blue, blue, green, and I put them at the top to leave room to write some numbers on there later. So I know this first round, and again, we're going to play a certain amount of rounds depending on how many players, 2, 3, or 4. You're going to play 8, 9, 10, 9, or 8 rounds. And so here we're going to say, okay, so between 2 blues, and so the same, I only have 1 blue number, but the same blue number twice, and the green number, what does that add up to? And so maybe I think it's going to be in the range of, I don't know, 8, maybe 8 to 10ish or something like that. So the person in last place, the one who rolled the dice, gets their first choice at some of these betting markers. The bigger they are, the less points they are if you get it right because it covers more numbers and you have more chance of doing that. So maybe I take a 2 here and I say, let's say it's, let's take a 2 and I'll say maybe it's between 8 and 14 and I put it just like that. In order, turn order from last place to first place, everybody would place them. So as you can see, they get removed as they're taken, so there's less and less to choose from if you're in first place. Then one at a time, they will tell you, everyone will find out if they were right or wrong. Now I said it was between 8 and 14, and let's just say they said, no, it's higher than that. So I would know that this one is 15 to 21 because 21 is the highest number in the game. So it's between 15 and 21 I know, and it was blue, blue, green. And I got it wrong. Now, if I had gotten it right, I would have been able to move up 2 spots on the board. But I didn't. I got it wrong. After everyone goes through and says that they're right and wrong, the people that got it wrong get to remove any 1 card from their stack. Now, at the beginning of the game, there's a bunch of cards left of each color, but as people start getting things wrong, these cards are going to be getting taken up, and sooner or later, maybe there's a color missing, and in this case, I could not take out my red card because there's none left to replace it. Well, let's say, okay, I'll get rid of my blue card. What I get to do is I get to flip this over and look at it. This was a 4. So I know that my next one's not going to be a 4, and I know that this was a 4. This goes out of the game. I then get another new blue one that I do not get to see this one, but everybody else does. So I got some information, and everybody else got some information too, and now people know about this card that I don't necessarily know about. Now, if I know that this was a 4, this shows me that there were 2 blues. So 4 and 4 was 8. So I know that this had to be between 15 and 21. If blue was a 4, which made that 8, now I know that green has to be 7, because if it was anything less than that, it would have been less than 15, and I would have gotten it right. So in this case, I can deduce, I haven't seen these, I can deduce them, so I X them. And I can say this one's probably definitely a 7. Now I know green. I guess in this spot you could have actually put 4 plus 4, because there was 2 of them, or you could have just put the amount 8 in there, whatever would make most sense to you. So I know that that's green, and then everyone would do the same thing, and then we'd go to the next round. So let's say we're a few rounds later, and the next 2 rounds I got it correct with the different dice that were rolled. And let's say this round, I just put this down and they just tell me it's wrong. And they don't just tell me it's wrong, they tell me whether it's higher or lower. Unless, if you use the smallest betting token, it's red for a reason. It's only one number you're guessing. If you get it right, you'll get 5 points. If it's wrong, they do not tell you higher or lower. They just tell you it's wrong. That's the only exception to that. Otherwise, they always tell you whether it's the true number's higher or lower than what you bet. And let's just say they say, you know, wrong, the true number's higher. Okay? This was, I had put 6 out of 12, and they said it's higher. So, it wasn't really 6 out of 12 here. What we do is, we know it's bigger than 12. So we know that this is between 13 and 21. And sometimes I wait to write that until after I get the answer. So here we have, okay, so we flip this over. And let's say we flip over the yellow and it's a 4. Well, it was a 4 here, which means it had to have been a 4 here because it wasn't removed before that. So we look backwards and we see, this had to be between 8 and 12. And the 2 4s here would have been 8. So sometimes I'll just write in, okay, there's 2 yellows. So this is, instead of 4, it's actually 8. And I know that this has to be between 8 and 12. So I know that purple has to be 0. And so I can deduce those by working backwards. Now the cool thing is now that I know that 8 is actually 0, I know that between here there were 2 purples and a red that was between 6 and 12. Well, there were 2 purples that was 0, so I know that this alone, this red number, has to be between 6 and 12. 6 is already taken, red has to be 7, and deduce it this way. Now, as things go on, sometimes taking a card off will hurt you, because let's say we had some things deduced here. Maybe I got yellow somewhat deduced, but then later on, when it's time for me to get something wrong and I have to throw out a card, maybe there's no, I have to do yellow. Maybe all the other cards are gone, for example. If you have to throw away a card and you get a new yellow, well, anything you've learned through deduction, not through sight, but through deduction, has to get erased. So you never want to end up throwing away a card that is something that you've got a lot of deduction on, because a new card comes and it could now be one of these 2 numbers. So things change that way, and it's kind of a cat and mouse game as to which ones do you flip up and which ones do you leave there. Now this will happen all the way until we get to this round with 4 players, this round with 3 players, this round with 2 players. At the end of those rounds, we then go to the betting stage. Now the betting stage is, each one of these says 5 points, 2 points, 1 point. What you're gonna do is if I'm not sure, like let's say it ended right now. Blue I know is like 4 different numbers. If I tried to say, well, it's either 5 or 3 or 2. If it's one of those 3, I only get 1 point because I used 3 to bet. But green I know is a 7. Purple I know is a 0. Red I know is a 7. We're not using gray in this game. Yellow, I could either go for 3, or I could just really try to go for the gusto and guess. But maybe I say 4, 2, and 1. And once everyone's done that, we flip it over and we find out. If each of these was one of them, I'd get 1 point. Here I'd get 5. And if you've guessed 2 numbers and you get it right, you get 2. So it's this game of how sure am I, or how much do I want to bet on this, versus how sure and conservative I want to be. I'll get it right, but I'll only get a few points. And for each of those points, you're moving up on the board. And of course, at the end, whoever's the leader on the board is the winner. Wow, okay, you guys know I love deduction games, and in my top 100 videos of all games of all time last year, Code 777 was in the top 20. I love that game, and this one is most similar to that game. It's not that similar to Hanabi other than, you can't see your own thing. Other than that, it's a completely different game. Code 777, it's a lot closer to that than Hanabi, but it's still actually pretty different. Other than having the tiles facing you and you can't see your own, other than that, and you're trying to deduce which ones are on your tile, I mean, that is the same. But other than that, it's a completely different game, right? I mean, a lot of differences, first of all. In Code 777 is, I would say it's a lot less forgiving game. It's a lot, I wouldn't say the deduction's harder, but it's less forgiving. Code 777, when you get something wrong, you don't get to see it. It goes out, you got to start pretty much over, and you're way behind the 8 ball at that point, especially if somebody else already got one right, and they continue to get some right before the pile empties out. And so that can be pretty frustrating. I still love the game, but that can be a frustrating thing that can turn people away from that game because it's very hard and it's very unforgiving. I mean, it just whacks you off the head, just boom, 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 you're getting beat up by Code 777. This game takes such an interesting and refreshing twist to that, where no, you can't see your numbers, but the key here is so cool, where it's like, if you guess the range right, well, what are you gonna do? You're gonna guess a large range and try to get 1 point? Or you're gonna try to narrow it down and get more points? Cool decisions to make, right? I'm gonna be betting. And then depending on what position I'm in, I'm gonna be first, second, third, or fourth, and the thing I want might not be there, right? And so it allows the person who's in last place to try to get their way up. It's an interesting balancing mechanic because you don't always want to get something, or I should say, getting it right or betting correctly might not always get you a win in this game. And I think that is refreshingly cool. Because when you're narrowing it down with the right answers, and by the way, my video might have made it look like this is a piece of cake, this is an easy deduction game because I just showed you how they all link. The problem is I did that for effect just to show you how the game works, but in reality it's never that easy. This is a hard game. The deduction's tough in this game, okay? So it's not as easy as I showed it. But if you do get things, so you got these two different ways to go. Do I try to get things correctly? Now if I get it correctly, I'm trying to bet so that even if I'm right, maybe I'll narrow down the numbers of a color or two by half, right? There's 6 possible numbers. If I bet in the right range and the numbers are in a certain range, maybe this color has only low numbers left, this color only has high. If I bet the right edge, if I'm right or if I'm wrong, I've narrowed it down in half. And I get some points if I do, I get some information I don't. And it's brilliant. It's such a brilliant idea because you're trying to figure out where you should bet, or should you even try to be getting it correctly? Sometimes you might, as you saw in my video, the overview, sometimes it might make sense to get it wrong and shoot for a 5-point or a 4-point. Take a stab. If you're right, great, you get points and you know which number it is. If not, well, you get to learn some information, and that's cool because it does hurt you. So unlike Code 777, you get to see what that number was, and that's huge because then you can work backwards and see what else does that unlock. And I love that because something can unlock something, something, and those chain reactions is what makes this game really cool. So you're constantly trying to weigh right or wrong, and when you get wrong, you get some information. You also give information to your opponents too, which balances it out, but at the same time, you might be giving them information of something they already know, or maybe you already give them information on something that they have already deduced that's not there. So you're giving them information, but it might not always be new information for them. Really cool. So I love that balance of betting right versus betting wrong and trying to refine. Just to show you how this plays out, the last game we played, I got it right every single time. I was getting points. My dad was getting them wrong a lot. I think he only got it right once. He was getting wrong, he was getting wrong, he was getting wrong. We got towards the end of the game, I was way ahead of him in points, and I had some of my numbers narrowed down to 2 or 3. You narrow them down usually slower when you're getting them right, but when you get them wrong, you get the deduction faster, but you're getting less points. It's such a beautiful balance. So I was way up in points, so I was very conservative. I said either 2 or 3, which meant at the end of the game. So I'm only getting 1 or 2 points for everyone right, where he was way behind in points, but he was wrong so many times, he was able to deduce all of his numbers. And he knew for sure. So for every number, he got 5 points. So in that last game, he got like 20 or 25 points. I'm getting 1 or 2, even though I was way in the lead. He caught up and beat me, and that blew me away. That this game, it's not just deduction. Code 777 is awesome, it's amazing, I love it. It's a puzzle. This takes that puzzle and makes it into a game. This is a real game where there's logic and deductions at the very heart of it, and it's not easy, but there's a game. Good, right, wrong. When do I do wrong? Which colors do I take? Controlling the dice and being in last place is huge in this game because you get to say which dice are the ones that are going to be placed. So you have so much more strategy when you can control the dice, and that's an interesting balancing mechanism. I've got to say, I was so surprised by this game. This is one of my favorite deduction games automatically, and it might even knock Code 777 off its perch of where it was. This game's amazing. I just wish, the only negative thing I'd say about the game is the components are garbage. Complete garbage. Paper board, really? Paper cards? Come on. These should have been tiles. I mean, and should have just had the color or the symbol. Now, it does have symbols, which I like because it's colorblind friendly. They could have put the symbols on the back, the symbol of and the color on the back of the tile, and the number and that color on the front of the tile. Done. These cards, in a game like this, if one of them gets bent, if one of them gets chipped, if one of them gets the game's pretty much broken. Okay, so I don't know what they were thinking. Probably try to keep the cost down. I understand that. And with this game, you need an eraser. You can't play with pens. It should have came with these little mini pencils with erasers too. Again, I'm looking for things to nitpick here because I absolutely love this game to death. It's one of my new favorite deduction games. But they could have done some better with the components. Pencils with erasers, better board, a real board, and some tiles. And this probably would have been one of my favorite games of the year, period. Otherwise, it's still excellent and still probably going to make my top 10 of the year. That is Think Str8. Now, keep in mind this game, I do not believe, it definitely does not have US distribution, but I believe you can buy it on Amazon.de, and I don't think it's that expensive, but with the shipping, it's probably going to be probably pretty expensive. But if you like deduction games, if you liked it all Code 777, this is puzzle with game amazing.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.